Do what WCPT does best. We are going to talk politics. And we have someone new in the studio with us. Azam Nizamuddin is here, and he is running for circuit judge in DuPage County. And among them, there are many things that set him apart, but one of the most obvious things is that you're Muslim.
Right.
Yes, you know that. You don't need to really confirm that, but yeah, I kind of set you up for that.
Sure.
I'm very happy that you're here to talk with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Joan. I really appreciate it.
So, you've been a practicing attorney for 20 years. What makes somebody who's successful in that profession decide they want to be a low-paid judge?
I know. A lot of people ask me that question. Why do you want to deal with all these problems and decisions you have to make for so many people? But actually, I started my career clerking for a couple of circuit judges in Cook County, and I got to know how judges think and, you know, what their lifestyle is like. And when I sort of harkened back to that, I thought, you know, I really enjoyed what they did. I liked the fact that, you know, they dealt with a lot of important issues for the community and for people. And after 20 years of practicing law, and particularly 15 of those years being a trial lawyer, I think I really have the requisite skill set and the temperament to be able to make, you know, pretty good decisions on behalf of various litigants or parties that would ultimately appear before me, whether it's in traffic, business disputes, personal injury cases, or divorce cases for that matter.
A lot of times running for judge means being backed by a political party, and that sometimes means, you know, making the rounds and shaking the hands. Have you been making those connections behind the scenes?
Oh, yeah, and that's I think it really requires a change of lifestyle. You know, I prided myself on the fact that as an attorney, I always tried, no matter what, to try to get home to have dinner with my family, right? However, in the past really 2 months since I began my campaign, I made it clear to them that, and I said, look, I doubt very much that I'll be coming during the week for dinner. Most likely I'll be coming late. So every night there's usually one or two events to go to. Sometimes they're political events, township related events, or just different organizational events that go on, and of course on the weekends as well. So it's like nonstop running back and forth.
Well, sure, you've got to get some name recognition going. And exactly. I've talked to people, you know, whether you're running for state rep, state senator, alderman, it's 24/7. It's nonstop. I mean, especially, you know, maybe if you're somebody who's already well known from another venue. But for most people, that's not the case. For most people, it's get out there and here's who I am and here's what I want to do and here's why I want to do it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there was a time, at least in DuPage County, where I'm running, where, you know, the race for the judiciary was not a very contested matter. And usually one party kind of controlled it for many, many years. And once they had a presumptive nominee, after the primary, they just sort of sailed in and won, and there wasn't really a contest. But that began changing a few years ago. So now we have very aggressive contested both primaries as well as the general election. It really began changing after 2008, but more particularly since 2018 when the first sitting judge and associate judge ran on the Democratic ticket and won for the first time in the history of DuPage County. And I'm proud to say that I was her co-chair in her campaign. That's Linda Davenport. So she really sort of changed, I think, the entire spectrum of how people run for campaigns for the judiciary. So now, for example, we have 4 vacancies in DuPage County. There are 6 Democrats running, and there are, I believe, 5 or 6 Republicans running. So it's, you know, really changed.
Well, I was talking many months ago to somebody who represents the Democratic Party in Kane County, and we were talking about how many years ago, the collar counties were Republican. They were definitely Republican, but Democrats really seem to be making inroads in Kane County as well as in DuPage.
That's absolutely true. Like I said, it began in 2008 when DuPage County for the first time elected a Democrat named Barack Obama. And then they voted for him again in 2012, and actually Hillary Clinton won DuPage County. So the county is definitely turning blue more and more. And and for the first time in, I think, the history, we have something like 6 or 7 Democrats on the DuPage County board. Usually there was 1 or 2 here and there. Now there's 7, and we're poised to take more seats. But I think the last vestiges of, one-party rule is really the judiciary in DuPage. And I and many Democrats, we believe, and, as a judge, we're nonpartisan. We treat everyone fairly. We don't take sides when it comes to decisions and so forth. However, I firmly believe that even the judiciary should represent all of DuPage and not just, a certain either group or a party or a group of people. So I think that's why it's important. That's why I'm running.
And why do you think that we've seen the Democratic inroads in the collar counties?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that just the sort of demographic change, number one. In other words, more people moving into DuPage County from the city. For example, Naperville is really busting at the seams. More housing units have been created. More neighborhoods have been created. Lots of people of color, minorities moving into DuPage County because the school systems are really good. Neighborhoods are safe. And there's great opportunities. There is more diversity now going in. For example, there was a time, my family's originally from India. So the place that people from South Asian background would go to, for example, for groceries, or ethnic food was Devon Street, right?
Heck yes.
That's where all the tasty restaurants are. But now it could be Lombard.
Wow.
It could be Naperville for awesome South Asian cuisines. So what I'm saying is that's beginning to change, and now DuPage County is offering those kinds of cultural experiences that didn't previously exist.
How does your law firm feel about you saying, I think I want to do something else now?
Well, I work for a company. I'm general counsel. So I actually, broached the subject with them, and they were actually quite excited, to my surprise. I thought they would be, giving me a hard time, but they thought it was a good opportunity. They just said, hey, make sure that, get your work done and make sure you're on top of things. But outside of work hours, you can campaign and do whatever you like. So, yeah.
Now, there's some more things that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about your work on the First Amendment issues. Those are, of course, very near and dear to a journalist's heart. But you've also worked on immigrant rights. You've worked in religious freedom cases, all kinds of things. I'm talking to Azam Nizamuddin. I got the last name I can say.
Yeah, right.
The first name is giving me trouble. And he is running for circuit court judge in DuPage County. We are going to continue our discussion with him in just a minute. Tony, why don't I do the contest now if Damien's back there? Okay. Alrighty. I promised you this contest at 2:45. We had some technical issues. Here it is now. We're giving away a $50 gift certificate to Dino's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. If you are the second caller at 773-763-9278. That's our listener line, 773-763-9278. If you are the second caller, you're going to get a $50 gift certificate to Dino's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. And believe me, I've eaten there. Their food is amazing. Amazing. And they also do catering, either at the restaurant or your house or your office or for your holiday party. So don't forget Dino's. They're at 7004 West Higgins. That's 2 blocks east of Harlem. If you want to just call them directly, that number is 773-763-4077. Our contests here on WCPT AM 820 are open to anybody as long as you're at least 18 years old and you live in the greater Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana area. 1 entry per person, 1 winner per household, void where prohibited by law. Listeners may only win or qualify to win once every 30 days. Complete rules are on our website, WCPT820.com. Click on the contest tab.
I'm attorney Lou Cairo, managing partner of GWC Injury Lawyers. With the popularity of e-cigarettes and vaping products on the rise in our country, especially with teenagers, you need to know there have been hundreds of reported cases of lung illnesses and at least 9 deaths allegedly related to the use of vaping products and e-cigarettes. The risks are real and the consequences can be deadly. Common symptoms include coughing, shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue, fever, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Anyone suffering from any of these symptoms after using e-cigarettes or other vaping products should seek medical attention immediately and tell your doctor what type of vaping products you've used. If you've suffered a serious lung illness using e-cigarettes or vaping products, contact GWC Injury Lawyers today. With more than $2 billion recovered for our clients, GWC has a proven track record of getting our clients the justice they deserve. Contact GWC today to schedule a no-cost, no-obligation consultation with one of our injury lawyers. Call GWC at 312-999-9999.
Are you one of the 34 million baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964? Do you want to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home? Then you need to listen to this important information from Team Hochberg. According to CNBC, retirees are only going to bring in about $14,000 a year from Social Security, and 45% of baby boomers say they have nothing in the bank for retirement. Not a darn thing. That's more than 15 million people. Team Hochberg can help you save for retirement by paying off your debts with a cash-out refinance or with a reverse mortgage loan to defer your payments while unlocking your home's equity. To learn more about both of these outstanding financing options, call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender who will always look out for your financial best interest. You can call them now at 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of WCPT listeners. They also refinanced my house recently, and I was very happy with them. But they can't help you if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financial Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1124061.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Limu, when we're not telling people that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, I've actually been moonlighting as a DJ. What? Check it! Here's the good part! Liberty, 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 liberty. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
My name's David Hochberg. Meet Joyce, recently divorced and credit challenged because her ex-husband's inability to pay bills on time. Joyce contacted Team Hochberg for a mortgage using only the court-awarded child support and alimony because she worked side jobs for cash and didn't have any verifiable income. FHA allows borrowers to use alimony and child support as income as long as it's been received for at least 3 months and will continue for at least 3 years after the loan closes. Joyce met both of these requirements, and Team Hochberg helped to secure a mortgage for her and her 3 kids. I've been divorced and know how stressful it can be. So if you're seeking a mortgage after a divorce, call Team Hochberg, your honest local lender who will always look out for your financial best interest, now at 855-56-DAVID. That's 855-563-2843, or visit 56david.com. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of WCPT listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financial Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1124061.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Azam Nizamuddin is running for circuit judge in DuPage County. I want to talk to you about your background, but first, let's just talk about what does a circuit judge do? What kinds of cases do you hear?
Sure. So in the state of Illinois, there's 2 kinds of judges at the trial level. There are associate judges and there are circuit judges. Circuit judges are elected by the people, and they appoint the associate judges. And generally speaking, they both sort of cover similar areas of the law. So, for example, you might see traffic judges who work in traffic who are associate, and sometimes they could be a circuit for some period of time. But generally, they could be doing divorce cases, personal injury cases. In larger counties such as Cook County, they may be even more specialized. They may be a commercial division that focuses purely on commercial litigation disputes or tax issues or probate issues. And even in DuPage County, there might be a chancery judge that does these kinds of issues.
So does the Chief Justice say, okay, you're going here?
Generally speaking, in other words, you'll have a chief judge that represents all 46 judges. Mm-hmm. And that chief judge is usually a circuit judge. So in DuPage, there's about 15, 16 circuit judges. And they sort of decide whenever there's an opening for an associate, they will vote and elect an associate to the bench, usually from a pool of attorneys. Mm-hmm. And then the chief judge will typically assign the judges where to go and so forth, depending on interest, their background, and of course availability.
So why did you take the more difficult path of actually running for office when you could have just presented your case to the various judges and said, just appoint me?
That's a very good question, Joan. In fact, I did actually. I did apply several times along with many of my colleagues who are running. And unfortunately, the situation in DuPage is such that those of us who come from a wide variety of really highly qualified background, I was deemed to be qualified by the DuPage County Bar Association. We simply were not considered, and unfortunately, the status quo is such is that there's going to be a very change in the makeup of the current circuits unless people actually run and challenge that system and try to have a qualified, diverse group of men and women, and say, you know what, we want to have a greater representation of Cook County residents at the circuit bench and at the bench in general. Just to kind of throw some statistics out there for you, today about 51 to 52% of law students are women, and at least anywhere between 55 to 60% of women are lawyers. But today, there's only 24% of women on the bench in DuPage County. DuPage County is approximately maybe 30% minority of color. Only 3% of judges are that way. So we feel that in order for us to make that difference, we can't just sit on the outside and complain. We
and just keep crossing your fingers and
we
waiting.
Hope and pray and so forth, which is all good and well, and try to persuade people, but it just doesn't work, and I think we have to run.
I've spoken a couple of times with Daniel Epstein, who is a young man running for a seat on the Supreme Court, and he has proposed a number of reforms in the rules of the way the court behaves. And a lot of what he's proposing makes perfect sense. And I said, look, why aren't the justices sitting there now doing some of these things? And he said, it's a question of people do things the way they've always done them. This is how we've always done it, so this is what we're doing.
Right. That's an excellent point, Joan. I think that status quo, while it sounds kind of stale and sounds like something that is not appropriate, is something that people are pleased with because it serves their particular interests. But it doesn't serve the interests of the people at large. And that's why change is good, and that's why we believe in change. Change for the better. Not that we want to have unqualified people or, people who are just kind of handpicked just for the sake of personality or something like that. But, really qualified people from a diverse pool of judges is really, I believe, the important way to do it. And that is why I'm running for one of the 4 seats. I should mention to you that there are 4 vacancies in DuPage. So the one I'm running for is known as the vacancies are named after the judge who either retires or in my case, was removed from the bench. So Judge Patrick O'Shea was removed from the bench. So that's the seat that I'm running for.
Okay. What does your being a Muslim add to your candidacy? What does that bring to the table for you?
Well, I think that it's important, in today's climate, that the United States in general, the state of Illinois, and certainly DuPage County send a message that as Americans of all stripes, we believe in the American dream. That means that if you work hard, you follow the rules, and you have integrity, and you treat people fairly, that you have a shot. And that means you have a shot to become, an elected official, to become a judge, to become CEO, to be a professor, to be a policeman, whatever. And I think that I'm really concerned because I believe that the American dream, as we have traditionally known it, is really under threat. That there are people who now advocate that certain people are welcome and other people are not welcome. And as a Muslim, I want to demonstrate to myself, to my family, to my children, to my community, and the community at large, that somebody with my background, of Indian descent, of a Muslim background, but also a person who believes in fairness, integrity, and good values, that, someone like me can also be a judge in the state of Illinois.
I was talking with Heidi Stevens from the Chicago Tribune yesterday, and we were talking about the story of Dead Man Walking. So we started looking at some of the stats, and the argument against capital punishment is that it is a punishment that is so much more often given if you are a defendant of color, It is a punishment more often given if the victim of the crime is white. The numbers of black and brown people on death row far outweigh the numbers of white people. So what do you think it will mean to the people of DuPage when they come into your courtroom and they see a man of color?
I think it sends a message that the judiciary of DuPage and the judicial system of DuPage does care about who appears before them. And also that someone like me will treat everybody with complete, fairness and equal opportunity without prejudging them because of their color or because of their gender or because of their sexual orientation, that when they come before me, that someone who has experienced discrimination, whose community has been targeted, not just in terms of bullying, but actually by policies at the very, very top of this country, that when you have someone like that at sitting in the circuit court level or the appellate court or wherever, I think it sends a strong signal that, we all as Americans must treat each other with fairness and openness and, and justice.
I'm talking to Azam Nizamuddin, and he is running for a circuit judge seat in DuPage County. I am going to practice saying his name during the commercial break, but I would also like to open up our phone lines. That number is 773-763-9278. When we come back, I said I was going to do this earlier, but I got distracted by other things. I want to talk to you about your work on First Amendment issues and how that relates to the way you want to be a judge and things like immigrant rights and religious freedom, all the different things that you've been involved with in your long career. I'm talking to Azam, thank you, Nizamuddin. He and I will be right back here on WCPT AM 820 right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Azam, see, I got it. Azam, I want to now just keep saying it over and over again. Azam Nizamuddin is here. He is running for a judgeship in DuPage County. And I want to talk about some of the work that you've done to get to this point. And I also want to talk to you. You were telling me about an endorsement you got. Share with us.
Right.
Share with the class.
Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy has endorsed me.
Excellent.
And I'm the only, at least, judge that I'm aware of so far that he has endorsed. And, he's been someone who I believe is a great congressman for our district, my district in particular, but generally for Illinois. He's doing a great job with the impeachment proceedings, really focusing and honing in a relaxed, rational, logical way.
I see him on MSNBC all the time. He's actually, we've talked to him on the air here as well.
Yeah, so he's doing a great job. Just a really funny story. At my campaign kickoff event he attended, and what he said was that when he puts my name in his iPhone, it corrects to awesome. So as a result, he and a lot of my colleagues call me Awesome Azam. So.
Okay, Awesome Azam. I like that. I like that. Everybody needs something manageable and memorable. That could be it for you. Tell me about the TV ads that you were in.
Yeah, so I had actually appeared on I think it was WTTW, soon after Donald Trump took office. And the reason for that was because of the travel ban, the whole Muslim ban. And that was kind of raging. At that time, I was the president of the Muslim Bar Association and very active in issues dealing with religious freedom and religious discrimination. So I was invited there, but I was also invited, I think, Channel 9, WGN, also ABC News to address the issue about immigration and also First Amendment rights of people. And so I just sort of explained that I thought that decision by him to ban people based upon religious background was really unfortunate and really a constitutional violation. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court believed that his underlying reason, which is national security, which was really an afterthought if you looked at it, because here's what we want to do. Let's find a legal way to justify exactly.
That's how his administration works.
That's exactly right. That's what Giuliani advised him to. But it took them 3 times, remember? The travel ban, the first one was, sort of not upheld, and the second one was also not upheld. And then finally the third round, after he cleaned it up and focused on national security, the Supreme Court basically says that when it comes to issues of national security and immigration, the president or the executive branch has tremendous power, even above and beyond the First Amendment, which I found to be ridiculous. It was a 5-4 decision, and Justice Sotomayor wrote a brilliant dissent. I would recommend everyone to read that dissent. It's just a classic dissent that she wrote.
Give me a highlight of it.
Well, she basically said that what this decision by the administration did is to really undermine the entire history of the United States when it comes to open borders, particularly as it relates to immigrant rights. Not open borders for people who are undocumented, but people who are legal immigrants coming to the United States, particularly those who are facing persecution abroad. Can you imagine us today saying that if there's a persecution of Jews in Europe, for example, happening, denying access to them, or anywhere else for that matter, saying that, no, you can't come in, we're just not going to let you because, of your color. Or
I can't imagine it because it's what we're doing right now. I've talked to a lot of immigration lawyers about this, about how things are getting so tight for not just people who want to come here and live and work, but people who are seeking asylum. And how, I just talked to a lawyer, Scott Pollack, who said that he has seen since 2017, just such a radical shift. Whereas before, so many asylum seekers who were afraid for their life or running from gangs were pretty much, he'd said 90% of them got in. He said now it looks like 90% of them are going to be turned away.
Yeah, I mean, the attack on the asylum seekers is really the most, I think, unethical thing that I've ever seen in the history of the United States. When people are escaping from war-torn areas, persecution because of their religion or ethnicity or whoever they are, and we always provided a safe haven for those people. But sometimes, for example, in Iraq and Syria, those are situations we as a country were involved in and created. And now that we went there to liberate these people, and now that their country has been upended by our involvement, now we're trying to even prevent them from at least having a normalized life where they can just live in freedom and so forth, which is really unfortunate. So it was because of those reasons that I appeared to discuss these issues and so forth. And I can't give a story if I can just add real quickly. Sure. Which, I've been
we love stories here on WCPT.
I was a professor. I've been a professor at Loyola University for many years as an adjunct professor. And I remember I gave my final, and this was in December of 2015 to my students.
Was this in the school or the law school?
This was the school.
Oh.
So I gave my final exam to my undergraduate students. I came home, and I saw my daughter, who at that time was 9 years old. She was sitting on the sofa. So I said, "Hey, honey, how are you doing?" And the first thing she said to me was, "Daddy, do we have to leave the country?"
Oh.
And I thought, wait, why do you say that? Why do we have to leave the country? Because she said, because Donald Trump said that he's going to ban all Muslims from the United States. And it hit me at that time, Joan, that I thought, oh my God, the second generation, the next generation is feeling that they are not wanted, that they do not belong. I grew up in this country. My family's originally from India, but I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I always felt like I was part of this country. I went to Maine East High School. I was part of jazz band, concert band, marching band. I played varsity tennis. I became a lawyer. I'm active in bar associations. I never felt that I didn't belong here, even after September 11th. But now the next generation is feeling. And I said to myself, you know what? I need to get involved and do something. So I became more politically active, and it furthered my decision to run for circuit court.
And you've been involved in a lot of interfaith efforts and peace-building efforts. Talk about that.
So, yeah, I had my undergraduate major was actually in theology, and I have a graduate degree also in religious studies.
Because that dovetails with being a lawyer so beautifully.
Actually, there's a funny story about that. Like all South Asians, all Indians, we came in as pre-med majors. Right? So we had two choices. Either you become a doctor or an engineer.
Okay.
So what does a rebellious, sort of strong-minded guy like me do? I major in theology.
Okay.
Because at Loyola, back in the 80s, we had to take 3 theology courses and 3 philosophy courses as mandatory because, back then they really believed in strong liberal arts education. They still do, but not as heavily as back then. And I did really well in those courses. I really enjoyed them. And ultimately I wound up majoring and studying it to the point where I, contemplating doing a PhD as an academic. And I just loved the history and, the development of
Was it awkward being a Muslim at a Catholic college?
Initially I would say it was, but because there's so many other folks of different backgrounds that after a couple of years it was very normal. It wasn't that big of a deal. And nowadays it's like, many Catholic colleges, I would say maybe close to 30-40% or even half sometimes of the student body is people of minority or, non-Catholic background. Like, for example, when Bill Clinton went to Georgetown in the late 60s, I think it was like 95% Catholic or 90% Catholic. But now it's like 30, 40%. Loyola, Illinois, Benedictine, DePaul, all these Catholic institutions have really opened up and people feel very comfortable. Otherwise, they would not be going. So, after doing graduate degree, I thought, I don't want to spend another 6 years studying. I'd rather just do 3 and go to law school. So that's what I did. And that's how I wound up going to the law. But that never left me, that interest. So, after September 11th in particular, I started getting a lot of calls from churches, synagogues, and civic organizations to come and talk about, religion and Islam and violence, etc. So I started doing that, and ultimately that led to a teaching gig at Elmhurst College in DuPage, and ultimately at Loyola University.
How big a part of your life is your religion?
I would say it's a pretty important part of my faith, because it sort of grounds me to be able to, understand why we're here, where we came from, and where we're going. And I think if you're a Christian, if you're a Jewish person or a Hindu or even a Buddhist, that I think those are the 3 fundamental questions that any global world religion seeks to answer. It's not about, disagreeing with people. It's not about separating yourself from other people, but it's all these fundamental questions about where do we come from? What are we supposed to do in this life? And where are we going? And those 3 questions for me are fundamental, and my faith provides me that grounding which I need. And also, when it comes to issues of trials and tribulations and challenges in life, what do you do? Where do you go to? Well, my faith provides certain answers for me, which I look upon, just like anybody else does, whether you're a Lutheran, Presbyterian, Catholic, or Jew. And I think that that's why it's important for me for having that grounding. But at the same time, living as a minority and being accustomed to different perspectives and views, I feel that I've adapted to the point where I can treat everybody with respect, with fairness and justice as well.
As you said, there are a number of people in this race for judge in DuPage County. Why should I vote for you? What sets you apart?
Well, I think number one is the fact that I've been, practicing for 20 years, and I've done a variety of different kinds of areas of law. I've worked for large law firms, small law firms, had my own practice, in-house. I've been a trial lawyer for 15 years. I provide CLEs, which are continuing legal education classes to lawyers and judges.
You teach them?
Yes, we give what's called MCLEs, which are credits. Continuing
education credits, like nurses need them, lots of
doctors,
professions, yeah.
Exactly. I've done like 4 of those in the past 4 or 5 years, both in Cook County and in DuPage. I've been an adjunct professor, so I can, teach all kinds of different subjects. I've been very active in the Bar Association. Currently, I'm chair of the civil law section of the DCBA, which is the DuPage County Bar Association. And
what does that mean, that you're chairman of the civil law section of the Bar Association?
So,
and you assess all the lawyers who practice in that area?
No.
Or
so
what?
Yeah. So each a bar association like the DCBA or even the Cook County Bar Association or the Chicago Bar Association has different sections that cater to different areas of the law or different administrative activities. So, for example, you'll have a section for family law, for criminal law, for real estate.
So you can
probate.
join the Bar Association, and you can also join the subset that best applies to you.
Exactly. Very good. Yes. So mine is civil law because that governs the courts and litigation and so forth. For example, I'm also involved in the business section law. I'm also in family law because all those govern the different areas that I previously practiced. And also there's a editorial board for the journal that we publish from the DCBA, an excellent award-winning journal called The Brief. And I'm the former editor-in-chief of that. So I'm very active in the Bar Association.
And you were doing all this and you still got home every night for dinner?
Somehow I did, yeah.
That seems hard to believe. Are you sure?
Well, not maybe every night, but I would say majority of the nights. My wife can attest to that.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to continue our conversation with Azam Nizamuddin. One of the things that we're going to ask really hard-hitting questions when we come back, like, for instance, why are you not wearing your glasses on your campaign card? We'll get to the bottom of this and many other things when Joan Esposito Live, a local and progressive, continues here on AM 820 right after this.
Meet Miguel. He has investments through Principal.
Hi there.
Miguel finally had the opportunity to buy his dream car in retirement. But life changed when his 16-year-old granddaughter moved in.
We're happy to have her.
With the help of his advisor, Miguel reworked his financial plan, and now that dream car looks a little different.
We just want it to be safe for her to drive.
We can help you plan for that. Principal. Investments, retirement, insurance. Start today at Principal.com.
Principal Life and Principal Life Insurance Company is Principal Global Investors, Principal Securities Inc. Member SIPC, member companies of Principal, Des Moines, Iowa.
This is John Greenhut, and if your teeth are stained from coffee, tea, or smoking, Power Swabs is the answer. In 5 minutes, you'll see 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. Even better, there's no messy strips or trays that you'll have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes, and you're done. To try Power Swabs, call 1-800-679-0969. Your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free. 1-800-679-0969. That's 1-800-679-0969.
It's open enrollment, Fred. Time to compare plans.
Oh, Alice, we're fine with what we have.
Well, that's what the Johnsons thought until they tried Medicare's new Plan Finder.
The Johnsons, huh?
We saved on our prescription costs.
And got extra benefits.
Come on, Fred. Maybe we'll find something better.
Plans change every year. Use the new Plan Finder at Medicare.gov to compare health and drug plans. Open enrollment ends December 7th.
What do you know? Comparing plans really pays.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Joan Esposito, Live, Local, and Progressive, is brought to you in part by Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street, just east of I-55 in Joliet, and Hawk Chrysler Dodge Jeep on Roosevelt Road in Forest Park. Save money, save time, hawkvw.com and hawkjeep.com.
Let's be honest. The National Symphony may not be in his future, but he wanted to try violin. So you said yes because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more about keeping your kids safe in your vehicle at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Show him you love him. Keep him safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
If you would like to help out Azam Nizamuddin in his race for circuit judge out in DuPage County, you can go to his website, www.azamforjudge.com. You know, it really should be awesomeazam.com, don't you think?
I agree with you, Joan.
Now, who are you following on social media? During the break, he's like checking his social media, and apparently you're getting really good feedback. You want to share?
Yeah, someone said you rock on the radio. And someone said, oh, you're doing great. Keep it up.
Okay. We do have some listeners calling in with questions, but I'm not sure if we can. Let me just take a chance here and see if we can get it. Hi, Scott. Can you hear me? Okay. Tony, can you push a button and see if we can get Scott on the line? Okay. Like I said.
Hello?
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Really good. You have a question
Good.
for Azam?
Oh. I do. So, I'm an attorney as well. Congratulations on putting your foot out there and going for it. That's great.
Okay, hang on one second. We've got to get him on his headphones. Okay, now he can hear you.
Okay, congratulations on stepping into the race. I'm an attorney as well. Practice mainly transactional, although do some general counsel work, so I get involved in some litigation. So here's what I wanted to ask you for your thoughts on. Basically, how do you control, or what are your thoughts on controlling litigation costs? Because the costs spiral out of control. And in my experience, what I have found contributing to that in some ways, and I guess I'm leading towards an answer, is judges tend to want to kick the can down the road and not take the opportunity to summarily dismiss matters if it's appropriate, or at least take months and months and months to decide motions that may in fact dispose of matters when and then the parties have to continue to spend money litigating while they wait for the judges to act. So I'm curious about your thoughts on something
and
like
to
that.
dovetail with what you've said, Scott, I interviewed Steve Burrows, who did an HBO documentary called Bleed Out about his mother was just the victim of such incredible medical malpractice, and how he found it very difficult to get an attorney to take the case, and had at least one firm, while they were representing him, decided they were just getting out of the medical malpractice business altogether, because they said, it's just you put so much money into it, and it is really hard to get a judgment against hospitals and doctors. So this is a real problem in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I think Scott really hits the nail there, because I think one of the complaints I've had, and I'm sure many other colleagues like Scott have had, is the fact that it's one thing if a judge, by the way, most of the judges that I've appeared before, both in Cook and DuPage, where I've practiced primarily, but also the surrounding Collier counties, are very good and they're competent. But one of our experiences is that, they just don't make a decision. Mm-hmm. Like Scott said, they kick the can down the road, meaning that they'll delay, take things under advisement, 30 days, 60 days, et cetera,
believe
and
me,
so forth.
just reporting on some of the shenanigans going on in Washington following some of these court cases. There's a stay, there's a hold, they'll be back again in a month, there's an appeal, there's another appeal, there's, they've got another 6 months to produce documents, they changed attorneys, there's another 3 months, and you just want to start screaming.
Yeah, and what's the most frustrating is that our clients will be asking, why is there a delay? And it's hard to say, it's not our fault, but it's the judges. But, at the end of the day, they blame us because things are not moving along. I remember, just to give you one story, I filed what's called a temporary restraining order, a TRO, mm-hmm. against a husband on behalf of a wife client who, we were trying to make sure that he did not transfer any business assets, marital assets out of this estate. Mm-hmm. We filed a TRO. It was continued to 2 weeks. We came back. It was again continued for another 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. And my client was livid, and I was like, what is going on here? This is a TRO. It's called a temporary restraining order. It's supposed to be on an emergency basis. So I think Scott makes a good point that I think one of the things we can do, and this is the things I will definitely do, is that based upon my, and this is why having experienced attorneys who have litigated cases is so important to be on the bench, which is that cases have to be decided. You have to use your best judgment. You have to pay attention to the facts carefully. You got to make sure that the evidence comes in clearly under the rules, and then you obviously have to know the law. Then you make a decision, and if it's going to be appealed, let it be appealed. If it's going to be an erroneous one because of some other reason.
Do you think why judges are hesitant to make a decision because it looks bad if they get overturned on appeal?
I think that has been my experience, that a lot of judges are very concerned about being appealed. Earlier I told you that I clerked for one of the judges in Cook County. This is what I learned from him. His name was Judge John Madden. He didn't care at all what the appellate court thought. He said, I'm going to make a decision based on the facts and law, and this is how I will rule. And ever since that, I always followed that, at least in terms of understanding it, because I thought it was important that as a judge, we expect, parties, litigants, and lawyers expect you to make a firm decision and then move on with the case. Not hold it, not let it drag out, and so forth. So I think it's important to do that.
Is it just, okay, we've talked about the fact that maybe a lawyer or a judge doesn't want to get overturned on appeal, but I've never understood dragging it out, and then it seems like it's done and it's not done, and then it seems like it's done and it's not done. Is that the legal system, the way it's set up, or is that what you're talking about, judges who hold back from making a decision?
Well, I think in some cases that may be the case. In a lot of cases, it simply depends on the type and the nature of the case it is. For example, what we call the chancery division. There are many parts to that case, okay? And you may have to make a ruling on a particular issue. For example, there's something called discovery. You may have heard, where you gather information and, you try to get information on the other side and exchange it.
I know about discovery from the lawyers I watch on TV.
Right.
Because if the prosecutors don't share, then the defendants can't defend their clients.
Exactly. Well, a lot of motions or issues come up during the discovery process, which could take, many months up to a year. So
like things that are admissible or not admissible.
Admissible, or that the other side simply hasn't showed the documents or produced the documents. So that takes a lot of time. So some of it is simply the process and not the judge's fault. But other times, there's complexity to a case where there's motions that are filed. Then there's what's called evidentiary hearings that may come into the case. For example, in divorce cases, oftentimes you may have to run in on exactly a TRO in the middle of a case, which could take a couple day or two for just deciding and so forth. So I don't want to generalize and say the delay is always caused by the judges, and that's not the case. In some instances it may be, but it's also the nature of the case, sometimes the litigants, sometimes the lawyers, sometimes in particularly in divorce cases, some people go through 2, 3, 4 lawyers. And that also, delays the case because they're guaranteed by the law to have a certain amount of time to hire new lawyers. So all those reasons contribute to cases being delayed.
And what about the number of cases a judge has to deal with? I was talking to a judge who deals a lot with traffic court, and he said that he can go through 300 cases in a day. Now, he said, admittedly, some of those are people who don't show up, and it's just like, gets dismissed.
Yeah.
But it would seem that if you had too many cases, that it would be difficult to stay focused and stay up to speed on each individual case.
Yeah, that's true. But like you just said, a lot of these cases, only a few of them will actually require a judicial an adjudication based upon evidentiary information, right? In other words, going